Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and buying a new graphics card is probably my favorite PC upgrade. They're usually quick and easy to install, and they're by far the best way to improve frame rates in your games. But there are a lot of options out there, and the best card for you will depend on which games you play, your CPU and system performance, the resolution you play at, and of course, your budget. So if you are new to PC building or buying graphics cards, then hopefully this video will come in handy. And if you do enjoy it, then it'd be amazing if you could hit that little like and subscribe button below so I know to keep making these sorts of videos. But remember, it's always worth taking your time, doing your research, reading reviews, and if anything, you guys know this as well as I do, that's the best bit anyway, all that prep, putting things into PC Part Picker, figuring out what the best card is for your budget. I always found that stuff one of the most fun parts of this. Okay, so the first thing to consider is, of course, your budget, because obviously that seems pretty straightforward, but it is easy to get carried away, keep thinking, well, if I spend another £25 or £50, I can go from this to this, and then that just spirals. There are so many options of graphics cards out there for pretty much every single budget level, then you can quickly get carried away. But remember, your PC is only as fast as its slowest part, so if you have an older processor or really slow old RAM, then there's no point paying a ton of money for a super high-end graphics card. And if your monitor is limited to 60 Hz, then again, you're not going to see the benefits for going with a 2080 Ti. So maybe save some money on the graphics card and upgrade your CPU and your RAM as well. Value for money is kind of a relative thing, but generally low to mid or some mid to high range graphics cards offer much better bang for buck in terms of frame rates. So the very first thing you should do is work out what your budget is and what performance and features you think you need over the life of the card and make a choice based on that. Now, two of the main things to consider are the kind of games you play and also what monitor you have. If you're just playing Fortnite, Overwatch or CSGO, then you'll only need a low to mid-level card, but if you want high frame rates in graphically intensive games, then you'll need to shell out for something more capable. The AMD Radeon RX 570 and Nvidia GTX 1650 are good entry-level choices for 1080p 60 gaming. I mean, if your monitor is limited to 60 Hz, then getting a more powerful GPU won't help you as you are limited by that refresh rate. These cards both come with 4 gigs of VRAM, but this shouldn't limit performance at this resolution. Now, if you want to max out graphics settings or game at a higher refresh rate like 120Hz or 144 at 1080p, then you'll need something with a bit more grunt like a GTX 1660 Super or Radeon RX 580 or 590. However, if you want to get closer to maxing out that high refresh in more demanding games, then an Nvidia RTX 2060 Super or Radeon RX 5700 would be a better bet as they're much more capable. And both of these cards would also be a great fit for gaming at 1440p at 60 FPS. But for high refresh or ultra-wide 1440p, I'd jump up to the RTX 2070 Super or the AMD Radeon RX 5700 XT just to keep things smooth. If I'm honest, I still don't really recommend 4K gaming. You need at least something like a RTX 2070 Super or a Radeon 5700 XT to get something close to 4K 60, although that's not guaranteed. Really, only the 2080 Ti, or maybe if you go for a SLI setup, are you going to get that? And again, still, we're looking at 60 Hz. So one of the best things you can have for gaming is a high refresh rate monitor. And yes, we are starting to see 4K 120 or 144 Hz displays, but good luck getting anywhere near that kind of frame rate at 4K with the current cards. Right now, I still think the sweet spot for gaming is 1440p at 144 Hz, maybe on a 27-inch monitor. That's kind of like the best all-round. Yes, you can go 4K and it's a little bit sharper, but you're going to pay a lot of money for it and you're not really going to see that high refresh. Of course, if you want the very best experience and the bragging rights of getting the highest FPS among all your friends, then of course the 2080 Ti is still king of the hill. But for an eye-watering £1,100, it is pretty poor value for money. Now, when it comes to your system, as I said at the beginning of the video, it is only as fast as its slowest part. So you can have the best graphics card in the world, but if you're pairing it with a really slow processor or really slow or old RAM, then it's going to bottleneck it and you're not going to see the full potential. So when you do come to buying a new PC and picking a graphics card, just bear that in mind and maybe go for one lower tier of GPU and put a bit more money into getting, say, 16 gigs of faster RAM or a more recent i5 processor. Gaming at high resolutions like 4K or 1440p ultra-wide will put a heavy load on the graphics card and chances are that's what's limiting performance. But if you play at high refresh 1080p or 1440p, then it could be the CPU that's still limiting your frame rate. In either case, make sure you've got a decent processor like a quad-core Intel i5 or i7 or Ryzen processor. And I think 16GB of around 3000 MHz DDR4 RAM will help you maximize what your new card can offer. Bear in mind though that higher end cards often need an extra 6 or 8 pin power connector, so make sure your PSU or your power supply can handle that extra power draw. The next question, the big question, which graphics card should you actually buy? Apart from the stock models available from AMD and Nvidia, there are loads of third-party cards from other manufacturers who use the same GPU but then integrate their own custom boards, coolers, and often have overclocked performance. Asus offers a frankly crazy 13 versions of the GTX 1660 supercard across 4 tiers, with the more expensive ones having larger and better cooling and higher base and boost clock speeds. And while it may be tempting to buy the cheapest version of your chosen card, it is definitely worth spending a little bit extra on a more mid-range model with a better cooling option, as it will be quieter, more efficient, you'll get better performance out of the box, and also more overclocking headroom. If you're not planning on overclocking, then don't bother with more expensive models, as you won't be making the most of what they can offer. Some cards though, usually with higher performance coolers, can be huge. They're often either very long or cover 2 or even 3 motherboard slots, so it's worth checking you actually have room for it inside your machine before you buy. Okay, so we've covered a lot, but what about the nice to haves, the extras but not essential features? And the first thing that comes to mind is ray tracing. It is cool, but kind of a limited feature that might be worth checking out if you play games that support it, but at the moment this is exclusively on Nvidia's 20 series GPUs with no support from AMD, although this may change in the future. Ray tracing can help reflections, shadows, and environments look more realistic, and it works especially well in Metro Exodus, Battlefield 5, and Control. However, it's really only used in a handful of titles right now, and it usually comes with a hefty performance hit, anywhere from 30 to 50% lower frame rates, although Nvidia's new DLSS anti-aliasing feature does help mitigate this. And in some games, like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the ray tracing implementation is pretty limited and doesn't make that much difference. But with that said, it is still very early days for this technology, and there are a few new and upcoming titles like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Cyberpunk 2077, Watch Dogs Legion, and Dying Light 2 that all support it. So while ray tracing is not an essential feature now, we could see much bigger benefits from it in 2020. Also, the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox are expected to have some ray tracing abilities, so it is likely we'll see more supported games. Then there's things like RGB lighting, which are fun and would work nicely if you're looking to coordinate a lot of lighting in your system, but it can add to the cost, and it's up to you if it's really worth it. But what about having 2 graphics cards in a multi-GPU SLI or Crossfire setup? Well, to be honest, I don't really recommend it unless you just have money to burn. And even then, you're limited to Nvidia cards, as AMD's new 5700 series cards have dropped official Crossfire multi-GPU support. Nvidia's higher-end 20 series models do support up to 2 cards, but there are still issues with poor scaling, so you're not just getting double the performance. There's also micro-stuttering to consider, and overall it's just not good value, I don't think. So I've been waffling on for a while now, but really it comes down to doing your research and reading reviews. But also bear in mind that, yes, while you shouldn't pair your graphics card with a crappy old system that's going to bottleneck it, also consider you're probably going to have this for 2 or 3 years or something like that. Most people don't just go and drop a couple of grand and buy a whole new PC, you tend to incrementally upgrade your PC. So with that in mind, while some of these features of the RTX cards like ray tracing may not be a big deal now, if you are going to use this for a few years, then that may come in handy later down the line. So is it better to buy a top-end GPU like a RTX 2080 Ti and keep it for say 4 years, or buy something mid-range maybe every 2 years? Well, I think unless you've got money coming out of your ears, then I wouldn't recommend a top-end card. They're significantly more expensive, and although raw performance is high, and obviously you can enjoy that straight away, chances are it'll only be as fast as a mid-range card in a year or 2, and we'll miss out on some newer and improved tech on those future models. Also, a top-tier 2080 Ti is more than double the cost of a decent mid-range card, so you'd still save money if you bought that mid-range card twice as often. I'm not usually one to tell you to hold off for the next generation of GPUs, as there's plenty of great choices already available, unless of course new models are right round the corner. And rumors I've seen are suggesting that Nvidia's next-gen 30 series Ampere cards may be released in the first half of 2020. And these are supposed to be much more efficient and have improved ray tracing, although it's still only as good as the games that support it. We should also talk about the new Radeon 5500 series, which will be going toe-to-toe with graphics cards like this 1660. And these are ideal if you're on a bit of a budget or just playing at 1080p. So there is lots to think about, and maybe, you know what, the best option could be if you've got one of your friends who's selling their old 1080 Ti or 1080 card, as they still offer decent performance. Nvidia especially are guilty of just oversaturating the market. There are so many options and it can get really complicated, but if you do want to find out more, I made a whole Nvidia RTX buying guide video. So with all that said, I have put links in the description below with my current recommended cards for different budgets and resolutions, so go and check that out below. Follow those links. They are Amazon links, so they're technically that sort of paid affiliate, so just to let you know. But hopefully you did find this video useful. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, as I've got tons of other videos on refresh rates and graphics card buying guides and all that good stuff. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.